Off the Record with the Indiana 250 is presented by Prolific. When what worked stops working, I point purpose-driven leaders to Prolific, the growth firm. They turn plans into results with full-service marketing and strategy focused on outcomes, not vanity metrics. Head to prolifichq.com to learn more.
I wanted people to have this experience, students to have this holistic experience, that when you come to the business school, when we talk about this word transformation a lot, but I truly believe that transformative leaders are made by the experiences they have. We do a lot with our students outside of classrooms. But that gift is, when I talk about transformation, for these students who are Fry Scholars, that is going to really be defining how they live their life, both as a professional, but as an individual in a society.
Welcome to Off the Record, a podcast featuring leaders on IBJ Media's Indiana 250 list. I'm Nate Feltman, CEO of IBJ Media, which publishes the Indiana 250, a list of the most influential business people in Indiana. Welcome to Off the Record, a podcast featuring leaders on IBJ Media's Indiana 250 list. I'm Nate Feltman, CEO of IBJ Media, which publishes the Indiana 250, a list of the most influential business people in the state. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Tanuja Singh, president of the University of Indianapolis. Tanuja became UIndy's 10th president in July 2023 after serving for 3 years as provost and president of Loyola University, New Orleans. Prior to her time in New Orleans, she spent almost 25 years teaching business, first as a faculty member in the business school at Northern Illinois University, and then as a dean and professor of marketing at St. Mary's University in San Antonio. Tanuja's skill set is diverse. In her native India, she studied physics and was active in theater, which I'm looking forward to talking to you about. After coming to the United States, she earned a master's and a doctorate degree in business administration. Since arriving at UIndy, Tanuja has developed the school's Women's Leadership Institute to help women achieve and thrive in leadership roles, and created an academic division called UIndy Online to serve non-traditional learners. UIndy Online joined the university's existing CEAS Institute, and the combined entity serves two important roles in our community. It offers online degree granting programs for graduates and undergraduates, and it develops education programs tailor-made for employers in the region. Tanuja is a firm believer in providing educational opportunities for learners of all kinds and making UIndy a valuable resource for our regional workforce needs. She's backed up those commitments by pulling in several multi-million-dollar gifts to enhance and expand UIndy's programs. Outside of UIndy, Tanuja is on the board of Indy's Julian Center, which supports victims of domestic violence and abuse. She also serves on the Indy Chamber Board of Directors. She's also a benefactor and board member for a small startup school in rural India that serves underrepresented populations, particularly women. The school has grown from 35 students to 400 and now boasts a graduation rate of 100%. Tanuja, welcome to Off the Record podcast. Thank you for being my guest today.
Thank you so much. This is such an honor to be talking to you, Nate, today.
Well, I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Me too.
So I want to start with, at the beginning, which I always start with all my podcast guests, to talk a little bit about growing up. And in your case, you grew up in India. And I want to talk a little bit about where in India. I know India is a huge country. I've visited and had an amazing visit when I went there about 5 years ago. But I talk about growing up in India, what that was like in the early years.
So first of all, thank you again. I'm excited to talk to you. I was born in the foothills of the Himalayas in a town called Almora. And my dad was a senior administrator with the government. So while I was born there, we would go there to hang out with my grandfather during the summers. I didn't stay there very long, just the early years. And then we were in this entirely northern state of India. At that time, it used to be called Uttar Pradesh. And it was a lot of fun. I was... from the very beginning, my family was a big believer in education. So I still remember childhood being, okay, what else is out there?
Yeah.
We traveled a lot, but that's where I was born. It's a beautiful place. If you ever get a chance, I would highly, it's called the Switzerland of India, this little town. It is absolutely gorgeous. And I got my first undergraduate and my first master's in India before coming to the United States. So
yeah,
it was fantastic growing up in India. I have a brother a mom and a dad, and we were very, very close family.
Fantastic. So you studied physics originally.
Yes.
What drew you to physics, and did you originally intend to pursue a career that was going to take advantage of a physics degree?
So that's a good question, and the answer is no. I was born in a family of people who loved the sciences. My parents had the good fortune of going to college, and we grew up in a very science-based. My mom is literature, but very, very interested in it. And I was always curious about the world, even growing up. Like, how does this work? How does this function? So it was a natural attraction. I did all the science stuff in India, and when I was an undergraduate student, I had a professor who said, have you thought about physics, and particularly particle physics? And I just thought that was the coolest thing. Now, yes, I know that's very nerdish, but I just said, yes, I wanted to study particle physics. And I absolutely loved it. It was one of the most profoundly impactful things I did, because it was intelligent field that helped you solve problems. It was logical, and I absolutely loved it. So my plan was to actually get a doctorate. I did pretty well in my master's degree and get a doctorate. And, one day I realized, as much as I loved physics, and I always say this, as much as I loved particles, I liked people more than I liked particles. And I wasn't getting a lot of people exposure in that, except for the thing I did for, drama and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I didn't plan to do it, but it just sort of happened. And then I decided suddenly I wasn't going to get a doctorate in physics, which surprised my dad a little bit. But then he said, hey, what do you want to do? So I told him, I said, I have no idea, but I think I'm good in numbers and math, and that's how I ended up in a bank.
And so was that your first kind of job? In
I
banking?
got my master's, and I took this national exam. In India, you have an exam for the officers, bank officers exam, and I took it, and somehow I did well, because they probably asked more logical questions than banking questions. And that's when I said, wow, this is a pretty cool field. I mean, I loved, and I was in the international banking division, which really opened my eyes to export-import. And I'm reminded of a Seinfeld episode, by the way, from that.
I know that one.
The minute I said that. But I loved it so much, then I said, wouldn't it be nice if I knew something about international business and business in general?
Right.
And my brother was planning to come here for his degree. And I just said, hey, I'm going to do this too. So really in the early stages, I was doing really well, in the banking sector, and I probably would have been a CEO of one of the banks there. But this curiosity, which I have with just experimenting with different things, that has stayed with me forever.
Yeah.
And that part of me is what kind of brought me to what I do now. So yeah.
That's interesting. So in terms of when you decided to come to the United States, talk a little bit about what drew you to say, I'm gonna advance myself in my career in the U.S. and leave banking and think about pursuing higher education. Talk a little bit how that all came about.
In the beginning, actually, I wanted to just come here and get another master's degree in business and really work for a bank. I was very interested in banking. And in fact, it was in my master's program that I just fell in love with how teaching impacts people. Because I was fortunate in India that, I knew I was going to go to college. But I met so many students who said college just transformed their lives. This is not the life they would have imagined. And when I was in my MBA program, a faculty of mine, I used to teach for him regularly. And he told me, I don't know if this is true or not, but he would tell me, hey, you get better evaluations than I do. And he said, have you thought about, just getting a doctorate and being in academia? And at that time, it was like, yeah, maybe. But once I saw the impact, I was pretty sure that I was not even going to look for a job after my master's program. I was going to go get a doctorate, and I was going to teach.
Yeah.
So that was pretty. In about 2 years, I had made up my mind I wanted to be in higher education.
Yeah, and so you started at Northern Illinois, and then St. Mary's, Loyola. So talk about some of those experiences and what eventually, of course, you were recruited to come to UIndy, but talk about the lead up at some of those other stops before you got to UIndy.
So, in fact, I started at Florida Tech. It's a small private school, again, in Melbourne, Florida.
Okay.
I stayed there about 2.5 years. And that story, you'll probably see that thread throughout my conversation. I noticed that people would come talk to me about not just the classwork, but they would talk about life. They would talk about, hey, what should I do? So I don't know what it is, but maybe I was just, a good listener. But I would have students, undergraduate and graduate, come and talk to me. When I moved to Northern, it became a little more clear to me that in addition to teaching, what I really liked doing was mentoring people. There were not a lot of people in the school that looked like me, who had an accent, who was also 5'2.5". That's another thing. So it was good fun for me. And I had students coming to me all the time. And I learned with them, and I learned what they were looking for. I'm also I like connecting people. So I was very connected with corporate. I just said, look, we're talking about this whole thing about relevant learning today. But when I was at Northern, one of the things we did very, very interestingly was started working with companies. We would ask them to give us their projects that they didn't have time to work on. And I convinced my dean that was, there were lots of people doing it. We did that. And I began to see that connection between not just education and isolation, mentoring people, helping them learn the skills. And after that, it just became sort of I became a department chair. I was a director of the international business thing for a little bit. And then I noticed that I probably could make an even bigger impact as I moved up the chain, if you will, as a dean. And then, of course, gradually as a provost and the president.
So what was it when you decided to put yourself in the running to be the next president of UIndy? What was it that drew you to UIndy and where you are today, and Indianapolis? What got you excited about that opportunity?
So as a business school dean, people often told me, hey, you should look for a presidency. But I also knew that I needed some skill sets that you have to understand the institution as a whole. So when I took the provost position, I realized that a university has the exact same structure, very different players, but a very similar structure to any other organization. That, as I say, there's no mission without margin. Your outcomes are your KPIs, whether your students do this or not, right? So I was always interested in that level of thinking about transformative kind of approach. Now, I don't want to claim that, hey, I'm transformative, but that interested me. When I looked at the provost job and I did it, and I said, wow, wouldn't it be? And I was told by several people, and I knew that that's what I wanted to do. But I didn't want to just go to any school. I wanted to be in a place where, one, the school was very connected with the community, that we had a place there that we wanted to impact. I also wanted to be in a smaller university. I do much better when I don't teach anymore, but I still know my students. I could make an impact, and I could see the impact. So as search firm search firms come to you, I was very selective in who I applied to. I did not know much about the University of Indianapolis, but I started studying Indianapolis, and I said, I had been here before, many, many years ago, for a conference or something.
Yeah.
And I started looking into it, and I said, this is a really nice place. They have the programs that I would love. They have the connections that I could build on. But they also have a very big commitment to the community, because you can see it in how they talk about them. So I applied, and, I guess I just got lucky and I was selected. But I have just been so grateful for the opportunity that the city has given me. I met you, 2.5 years ago?
Yeah,
probably within the first few months,
weeks,
right?
Yeah.
And we're having this conversation. That doesn't happen in every town.
Yeah.
It happens in places like this. And I know that this community cares about that stuff. So I'm like your biggest marketing person now. If you want to have someone talk about Indianapolis, hey, tell me. I just absolutely love the university, what we are doing, how we are transforming this whole model of education. And also the city has been so welcoming and so gracious with, teaching me to be a better Hoosier.
That's fantastic. It's fantastic. So, because you have a lot to compare it to in terms of cities, you're obviously you're a person of the world. You've been to lots of different places, but you've lived in bigger cities like New Orleans and San Antonio, and maybe they're not too far in terms of much bigger than Indianapolis, but those are significant urban centers, of course. And your impressions are, when you compare Indianapolis to some of those cities I mentioned, what are the key differences? Are there key differences? Or is Indiana? I mean, you've said it's welcoming and so forth, but is there something that sets us apart?
So I'll tell you one of the things that it's just my nature. Wherever I go, I I take in the city. I take in the city with everything, with its soul. And I become one with the city. When I lived in San Antonio, I loved it. Also a very welcoming culture. It's one of the most unique cities.
Yeah.
And it's fun. When I was in New Orleans, I mean, I got involved in everything. I was at Mardi Gras. I went to Jazz Fest. I went to the Red Dress Run. And all these cities have been welcoming. The one, and I don't think it's very similar to San Antonio in some ways. You know, the access you have to people in this city and the genuine desire of people to help you is something that's rare. You know, you hear a lot of people say, hey, tell me how I can help you. This city, when I say, hey, I want to talk to you, they're available. They are genuinely about giving back and also connecting. I don't think I've had a single person say, I can't do this for you. And I think that is very similar to San Antonio, very, very similar here. And I keep telling people, and I said, this is one city where be careful what you ask for because people would give that to you. It's phenomenal. It's a huge difference. And I'm surprised that more people don't know about it, although I have to tell you that IU win. More people are going to know. Congratulations to you. I know you're an alum.
Yes.
So,
yeah. We're excited.
Yeah.
Hopefully when this podcast airs, we are national champions. But we'll wait.
Well, you know, I'm a Hoosier now. I'm rooting for you guys.
Absolutely. Well, I want to talk a little more detail about what's happening at University of Indianapolis. And I know one of the first things you did was to really try to get your arms around what exactly is happening and what do you want to have happen. And you launched a strategic planning process. And I think my understanding in reviewing some of the things that you've accomplished is that the research validated some assumptions that in the strategic planning, some assumptions that there are some challenges with the traditional university model today, and the whole model of higher education, the traditional model, is undergoing change dramatically. I don't have to tell you; I know you're living it in many ways. But how are you approaching what is now a different higher education model, and how does UIndy today differentiate itself to be able to attract the kinds of students and working professionals that you want to serve?
That's an excellent question. So if you think about it, education is not linear anymore. It's not that you go to college, you get a degree, you go work for a company, maybe you come back. Education is happening all the time, and there's continuous learning. And I believe in some ways the traditional higher education was serving the traditional student. 18-year-old comes to the university, stays in your residential facilities for 4 years, graduates. That's no longer the norm. It still happens, but it is not the only model. Everybody, all of us, including me, we are in that continuous learning mode. So that continuous learning, the lifelong learning, is really the model. The other one, we have often defined how will we teach. I always tell people, I said, it's less important how we teach. It's more important how people learn. People learn differently. Some people want to sit in a classroom and learn. Some people want to actually do it online. Some people don't have the luxury of coming to a classroom. And while we were doing a really good job of the traditional classroom, we had some options, but not enough options. So if you said, I already have degrees. I just want to come and learn something about, say, logistics or artificial intelligence. Your options were limited. You were not getting in-depth knowledge. And my whole philosophy is learning is dependent upon the person who is your audience, right? The learner is the most important part. So what we have done is we have our traditional model, but we have now, of course, UIndy Online, which is not different from a lot of places, but what it does is, let's say if you had finished maybe 60 years in college, but you never finished college. Well, we can help you finish that. So you are in Indiana, as you know, there's a talent issue, right? There are lots of people with some college who never finished, but we are making it easy for them to do it. And we're not asking them to be the same person as an 18-year-old going and taking online classes. That's a big difference. The other one is we have this whole thing on stackable certificates. So while you're doing a degree, let's say you're interested in artificial intelligence, you'll get your MBA in a year and a half or whenever, but you can get those certificates now so it can reflect on your transcript. So we are thinking with the audience. And finally, we are working with corporate to say, this women's leadership program we instituted, it was really in response to, hey, what do we need? So let's start something that's content-based, it's rigorous, but at the same time responds to the needs of the society.
Yeah, that's so you're giving really anybody who wants to advance themselves, and often that's sometimes turn a non-traditional student.
Yeah.
So someone who's not just graduated from high school and enrolling in college. It could be somebody who's been in the workforce. And the two programs you mentioned, the online programming that UIndy offers, as well as the stackable MBA program, I'm assuming a lot of times those are being accessed by people that are not, quote, the traditional.
Absolutely, yeah. We call them post-traditional students.
Yeah.
We basically say, hey, if you want to change your career, you want to charge your career, you want to just learn a new skill, we have an option available for you. And that is, I think, what makes us different.
I was going to say, it's a key differentiator for you.
And, the stackables, we basically said, hey, could you do something within your degree? So you could tell your employer, I want to come back with this MBA, but I'm going to be now an expert in data analytics or in logistics or in AI. And I think that sets us apart. And more universities need to be thinking about the relevance part of it.
Yeah.
Whether you're studying philosophy or whether you're studying business or engineering, how translatable are these skills to the real world at the traditional level and at the post-traditional? And also something that can you get people to do something that then is demonstrably connected to their field. So we are now basically saying, if you come into UIndy, last year, if you started at fall, before you graduate, you would have done something that's very experiential. If you're an engineer, chances are you built something. You're a business student. You've probably done some investment analysis, but real work that helps you translate what you're doing to something very, very tangible.
And with the stackable MBA, I'm assuming that can be done at whatever pace that you want to do it. If you're working full time,
yes,
and you want to pursue that over the long term, you can. The employer doesn't have to give somebody up for months and years to go full time. They can do this while they work.
Yeah, that's exactly the point, right? That's what we're offering. So could we do this while you are already working? And could you, maybe you want to come back. Maybe you don't finish the whole thing. And sometimes you can just get the stackables.
Yeah.
So you can say, hey, I've already done 12 hours. If I do 30 more, I have a degree. So it's giving people the option to learn at their pace and adjust with your lifestyle.
Exactly. Well, more ahead with Dr. Tanuja Singh, president of the University of Indianapolis, when we return to Off the Record podcast presented by Prolific. Stay with us. Most organizations hit a point where growth stalls. The message blends in, the site stops converting, the pipeline softens. That's when I tell leaders about Prolific, the growth firm for purpose-driven leaders. Through full-service marketing and strategy, they clarify the story, rebuild your go-to-market, and drive sales. Most importantly, Prolific holds itself accountable to the metrics that matter to you. If you're ready for your next growth stage, learn more about Prolific at prolifichq.com. Welcome back to Off the Record podcast. I'm Nate Feltman, CEO of IBJ Media, and I'm talking today with Dr. Tanuja Singh, president of the University of Indianapolis. Well, one of your passions, I know, is increasing the number of women in leadership roles and encouraging women to pursue their dreams. Talk a little bit about why that's important to you. How did that become something that was just an important piece of who you are and what you want to do?
I'm glad you asked that question because that's a very big part of my identity. So growing up, there were not too many women in physics. I think we had a class of 45. There were 5 women. Wherever I went, I noticed that there were not too many women, but also women were not in roles of leadership. They were hesitant sometimes themselves. They didn't see themselves in that position. And being a brown woman, and don't forget the 5'2.5", that was important. So I realized that I've always cared about it from the very beginning. And my dad was the original feminist, so he instilled this in me, and my mom did too. So it's always been a passion.
Yeah.
But I also see when I am looking for people, sometimes it is not the talent, but the inability to see yourself in the role. So I have always spoken at places, and when I had the ability to actually create a program that would help women realize their full potential, to helping them develop the skills that they need to move to the next level, coming here, this is the only thing when I came here, I had said, I will definitely do this at this place. I had dreams of this before I came here.
That's awesome.
And, I have a great team of people I work with. I came here, we made it happen in the second year. And it was it's probably one of the biggest joys of my life.
It's fantastic. So what you're referring to, of course, I said it in the opening, but just to repeat, it's the UIndy's Women's Leadership Institute, which I was excited to partner with you in a little way in that we sent 2 IBJ leaders to participate.
And they were fantastic.
And they couldn't say more good things about it. But you've talked a little bit about the why you created it, but talk a little bit about like what you've seen through year one and what you see kind of going forward. I know you did an incredible job. You and your team did an incredible job of bringing in well-known local women leaders to talk to the class and to give them ideas about how they can grow in their careers. But what's been your experience with the Institute through year one? And now I know you're getting ready for year two. What do you see any modifications or kind of continuing exactly how it's structured the first year?
Yeah. So I don't know how many of your audience knows about the Institute. So the way we structured it, we wanted to make sure it was inspirational, but it was also very skill development based. So the morning sessions, it's once a month for 10 months, all day. And I spent every single Friday with them, except one when I had to miss. I was in DC. What we helped them do was they heard from these amazing, amazing women. You know all of them, actually. Everybody in Indiana, you've heard of these women,
yes.
Right? And I remember Mel Raines coming in the very first day, and she was so impressive. So what we heard everybody say was, this is different because it helped. There's an inspiration part, but there's a very specific part about everything from negotiations to understanding AI better to strategic thinking. And that part really helps you develop your skill set. So we have got amazing feedback about the quality of the stuff that they did. But also we saw evidence of women, in fact, changing roles within their organizations, women getting promotions within their organizations during this thing. And I'm convinced that the content we have, we'll have, again, some amazing speakers there, but the content is tailored to the needs of the market. We have sessions on AI, we have how to negotiate better, executive presence, all the things, but really experimentally, you can do it, you can see it for yourself. And you can see me smiling. It was just such an incredible experience for me personally.
Yeah.
That it was very fulfilling.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So when you think about, I know you're constantly thinking about how to give women the skills and the skill sets necessary to progress in whatever direction they want to progress in. Are there certain skills that that are specific to women that you like that you say, gosh, obviously every woman is different, every person is different, but are there certain skills that you say these are the ones that are most needed that we find that women really need to focus on in order to further their life and their career in terms of what they want to achieve?
So, some of them are pretty much validated by research. One of the things, I'm sure you've heard it, women don't apply for a job unless they are 100% qualified for it. And men, if they're 60% qualified, they think they're overqualified. And I'm being facetious, but it is true. So part of it is also the ability to assess your own skill set in a very logical way. And really looking at honestly yourself, hey, what do you do well and what do you not do well? The other part that women know well but don't explore a lot of times is this aspect of the importance of finance and financial strategy in the success of any organization. It doesn't matter where you are right now. I always say, it doesn't matter what you run. The importance of finance. Those and the third one, and there are lots of them, but there is the third one. Women don't negotiate as well. Women generally negotiate they don't negotiate as well, not as effectively. So we wanted to make sure the other skill sets, executive presence, communication, etc., they are very strong across the board. Mm-hmm. But these are particular areas where we felt the hesitancy to apply. I had one encounter with one particular person, said, should I apply for this job? And I said, you're absolutely applying for it. And she did. And she said, it was just such a relief to see I actually fit that. And, she was not even thinking, and I said, but why not? Right. And I'm not saying I did it. But when they heard from these very successful women about the need to take, what's the worst that's going to happen? You're not going to get the job. That's okay. You weren't going to get the job anyway because you weren't applying for it.
Exactly.
So that is a big part of it.
That's wonderful.
So, yeah.
Good. I'm curious about mentors for you. Like who in your life have been important mentors? I know you mentioned your parents, but maybe others that have been really
my
important.
parents are amazing. My mom is the one who would tell me, I'm a terrible athlete, by the way. I mean, really bad. And my mom was the one, well, what's stopping you from at least trying? She knew I wasn't, but she was awesome. And my dad he was big, and my grandfather. But later in life, there are two people that I particularly want to mention. One is, he's in San Antonio, Mr. Bill Greehey. He co-founded Valero Energy. And he was our big benefactor. He had named the business school. But in him, I saw what a great leader looks like. He knew the people, he knew the business, but he knew the people even more than he knew the business. He cared about what he did deeply, and he was tough. And I'm still in touch with him. I just saw him a couple of years ago, and I'm going to go back and see him. Just an amazing human being. I have the greatest regard for him. And then the other one, very sadly, passed away a year and a half ago. It was his executive vice president, Mary Rose Brown. And she was one of those people that I never heard her say, you can't do this. In fact, she was the one who nominated me for all kinds of awards. And I said, I don't even qualify. And she was the one who said, well, she was just amazing. So these people, but they also taught me to be not just a better leader, but a better person, because they invested in the people they worked with. That was their focus. And I always use, in fact, you said, what's your favorite? One of my favorite quotes is, you're not successful unless you have helped somebody else succeed. And that was their motto. And I am forever grateful to these two people.
That's wonderful role models. Fantastic. Part of being a university president, I know, is fundraising. It's important for all universities today, and you've had some early, what I call early success in the last couple of years. You've been there, a couple of years, and you've had some really nice gifts that go to help fund the strategy, the ideas that you're bringing to the university with reaching out and helping continuous learners. And talk a little bit maybe about some of the gifts that have been most important.
Yeah. I'll talk about maybe a couple, three. So the one was, Steve Fry, he was an executive at Lilly. He gave a very generous gift to us for the School of Business. And the focus of this gift is really helping students learn outside the classroom as well. So professional development, but in a very dedicated way, whether it's through attending conferences, case competitions, actually working on real projects, but also there's a service component and giving back component to this. I wanted people to have this experience, students to have this holistic experience, that when you come to the business school, when we talk about this word transformation a lot, but I truly believe that transformative leaders are made by the experiences they have. And if it was up to me, I would probably provide these experiences. We do a lot with our students outside of classrooms. But that gift is, when I talk about transformation, for these students who are Fry Scholars, that is going to really be defining how they live their life, both as a professional, but as an individual in a society. So that one. Mm-hmm. The other one was from Laura Strain. She has named the Strain Honors College, but after I came on board, she has supported that even more significantly, because these are some of the best and the brightest students, and they can come from disciplines as diverse as philosophy to engineering to business. But the idea is, again, to develop the minds in a curious way that prepares you for life, not just for a technology or a skill. And I have personally taught like one session one day, and I was sitting in the class and I said, wow. So the fact that we have someone directing this program, that has made a big difference. And a recent one that we got was an endowed professorship for engineering, which again, helps us recruit the best people, keep them here, and they are doing the kinds of things that are transforming lives for students. So it's a good team. We just do some amazing things, and I'm very fortunate that people feel that it's worth investing in.
Absolutely. And you had a great announcement with the Lilly Endowment supporting a new innovation center on UIndy's campus, and there's a partnership with Perry Township Schools. Is that right? Maybe talk about that's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, that to me, talk about strategy, right? So the gift is to the Perry Township, but we are a big partner with them. So essentially, if you think about what's happening in higher ed, you have not enough students going to college. And a lot of times they're not going to college because they don't know what college does for them. The skills that they're developing in high school perhaps are too far apart. So we said it had, of course, we had an interest in it because, one, if we can get those students early and get them on our campus, but also help them train in the skill set that they are going to need beyond high school, it benefits the students, it benefits our state, and it benefits the university. So we will have a brand new building on the campus of University of Indianapolis that would be, the building belongs to Perry, the land, of course, is ours, but it truly is going to help them understand the skill sets that they need. And 400 students on campus every day. They will interact regularly with our faculty. They will take some classes with our faculty. They'll have projects that are co-sponsored. And just having them on campus, exposing them while they're developing these skills, now they know, hey, if I do this, I could become an engineer or a doctor or a philosopher or an artist. That partnership is going to become more and more important for universities. It also helps us avoid the so-called demographic cliff because this is also the group that will most likely, we are hoping, some of them will come to UIndy for their college degrees. We're very grateful to Dr. Spray. He's the superintendent for this partnership. And I think the building probably will break ground next year.
That's fantastic. And that's like you said, it's a great opportunity to expose students to University of Indianapolis and get them thinking about pursuing their dreams and higher education in a serious way. It's fantastic. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Another partnership. You've got a lot going on. So Indiana Sports Corp, there was not too long ago, late last year, right? You announced a partnership focused on of course, the sporting business, the sports world, and talk a little bit about what that means for UIndy students and the opportunities with the business of sports in greater Indianapolis.
And if you think about it, this city is truly the sports capital of the world. I mean, we are fantastic. And as part of our plan, we want to make sure that when we bring in students, before they graduate, they have these amazing experiences, that they have internships, that they've actually looked at what the world looks like. And this opportunity was very intentional in the sense that how do we partner with organizations before our students ever graduate? So if they can have an exposure to everything from event planning to event management to managing finances, the logistics of it, all these different jobs. And we have a lot of the degrees at the university, but what does it look like in the real world?
Right.
And our partnership essentially helps us translate these classroom experiences into something very tangible with guaranteed internships with Indiana Sports Corp and hopefully a job right after that. So we are building this and many partnerships like that where we know that we should be the talent provider to these amazing employers. And if we can do it early on, then the employers have a confidence in the quality of our students, and students are confident that they will graduate and work for them, and they will stay in Indiana. That's another one of our goals.
Absolutely.
We do not want to lose these brilliant students to other states.
100%. Well, that sounds like a great partnership.
Yeah.
Well, Tanuja, we've made it to Off the Record Speed Round,
all right,
where you give me answers, hopefully somewhat quick, but that you can take your time, to a series of questions I ask all of my 250 guests.
Okay.
So the first one is your favorite movie.
Saving Private Ryan.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
Your favorite place to vacation.
Bordeaux, right outside of Bordeaux. And I have a friend who owns a bread and breakfast there in France.
Oh my gosh, that sounds wonderful.
Yes.
Your favorite musical artist.
Oh, Jason Isbell. I love him.
What's the first thing you do in the morning?
I meditate every day for 15 minutes.
Oh,
no matter how busy my day is, I meditate for 15 minutes every day.
That sounds wonderful. I should adopt that one. That sounds like a good recommendation. Title of the last book you read.
Oh, the Loneliness of Sonia and Sunny. I just finished it. It's a fabulous, fabulous book.
I'll have to look into that one. What food can you not live without?
I would like to say Indian, but in reality, I think probably sushi. I love sushi.
Wonderful. Best advice you ever received?
From Bill Greehey, who said, "You're not successful until you help others succeed."
That's a great one. And my last question is advice for a young person who wants to become a leader in our community and more generally a leader.
leadership is not defined by titles. Before you can become a leader, you have to learn to serve. And I always tell people, learn to serve before you can claim a leadership role. It's not a title thing.
Love it. Well, Tanuja, thank you so much for joining me on the Indiana 250 podcast. Congratulations on all the success you've already had at University of Indianapolis. I know you're going to continue to do wonderful things there, and it matters a great deal for our community. So thank you for all you're doing for the city of Indianapolis, the greater central Indiana, and the state of Indiana.
Well, thank you so very much, Nate, for having me in the program, and I look forward to continuing to work with you and others in the city.
We look forward to it, too.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. To learn more about other leaders on IBJ Media's Indiana 250 list, go to indiana250.com and look for a Page 2 feature each week in IBJ. We'll be back with the new Indiana 250 off-the-record conversation soon.